Okay. Hi, everyone. We have Gyungju with us today. Gyungju is program coordinator for spatial design, and Gyungju is going to be sharing her story as a designer and how she has worked in the design industry and has ended up, at Monash leading the spatial design course. Gyungju, I might hand it over to you if you want to kind of lead us through this. I understand you're going to show us your website. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for having me. Before I talk about my practice, I guess I would like to share how I got there. This evolving practice over the past 30 years or so. I'm Korean, South Korea, of course. I was born and bred there, and I studied industrial design in Hongik University in Korea. When I was graduating, that time, a lot of people were employed by the big companies, big corporations like Samsung, Gold Star. And it was, the job was given because the school was reputable, and then we needed a lot of designers that time. So 100% everyone was employed. Yet I wasn't sure whether that was my way to go about the life. And I wasn't sure what being a designer was about. And particularly, I wasn't interested in this commercialism that designers are exploited. Actually, we turn out new phones every half a year. And so, and I wanted to study a little bit more. But I wanted to go somewhere. I couldn't find any Koreans because, at that time, again, a lot of Koreans left countries to study abroad. But I figured that I would be really lonely. And then naturally, I would hang on to other Koreans. Then I wouldn't learn the culture or language. So I was looking for a place to study master's. And also, I didn't have money. So I wanted a place for free, no Koreans. So I ended up choosing Finland. At that time, no Koreans were there except the family of people working in embassy, which means about total of 30 people in whole country of Finland. So I went to Taideteollinen. This is right now it's a University of Aalto. And I studied furniture, interior architecture. That was the second birth in a way as a design student, because the education in Korea was very different from which was heavily focused on visualization, no making. Helsinki, the Finland, or let's say Scandinavia, has a very, very long tradition of making and craftsmanship, art and design. And you can talk about Alvar Aalto, who's the national hero figure architect. You can talk about him with a taxi driver. So everyone is well versed on design. Design was embedded in everyday life. So I started making things, which was horrible because I've never made anything. So I don't think I was a very good student in a way. The grade structure, because everything was so new to me. But I was so hungry. I didn't speak Korean for entire year. For 5 years, I was living there. Sometimes I was struggling because my tongue got really, my muscle, you use different muscle when you speak different language. And I missed people who could speak Korean, but it was okay. I had a lot of European students, American students. It was so a lot of exchange students there together. I was really embedded into the culture. I learned English, European kind of English. And then I ended up working there after my graduation. I took my time to graduate. I thought that if I rush into it, probably that's a little too short. 2 years was too short. I took my time to go to exchange in Denmark for half a year. So I really enjoyed the life there, and then really wanted to learn how we live with design, like how the design is embedded into our lives. And from there, I was lucky enough to get a job, which was a teaching job, that worked with the different institutions all over the Finland. So it's 5 different institutions. We got together, and then that was my kind of first teaching gig. I wasn't employed by an institution, but I was employed by a project manager, and into developing a design for Asian market. So exporting from Finland to Asia. So it was a perfect fit. Now, I met my life partner there, who is Canadian. So he wanted to go back to Canada. So I followed him with no prospect of anything. So I just blindly followed my love and then try to find a job. But nobody will hire me because I'm a complete foreigner. I didn't study there. I didn't. But also the important thing is that my interest was sort of spreaded, like industrial design, interior design, furniture design, little bits of everything. So I did not have a particular skill set that was immediately employable. Um, when I had an interview with a product designer, she said, well, your portfolio is great, but you don't know how to make a spoon. I don't know how to make a spoon, but I know how to think about spoon. And so they would like send me back and forth. If I got lots of interviews because my portfolio was amazing. So interior design, think that they look at it, oh, look like you're more fit to industrial design. I go to industrial design. Oh, look like you're a little bit fit more to architecture. So, um, um, and also then another funny story is that I had a European English accent. So everyone thought that I was a Russian or some Dutch or, so that kind of attracted a lot of interviews. Um, and so I'm just trying to tell you that portfolio just alone isn't enough to get interviews with people. Um, so, but I was lucky actually to find a job in a furniture store. So I started assisting sale of a furniture store. This was a incredibly interesting store because they've got a lot of museum pieces. So they would rent out to movies and TV shoots. And while I doing that, I was doing a lot of design competitions myself. And I designed also a little salt shaker, and then I put it in the shop without telling the owner. And I was curious about how people would react. So I put it there. And one day, advertising company CEO comes in and he picks it up and who did this? And I said, it was me. I was hired as an art director then and a set designer for photo shoot. So that's how I get into the real, like in a way, the office work. And it was a very small boutique company, but ups and downs, you will go through the company, the accountant did terrible mistake with accounting, so they are on debt, so our salary were decreased, and all those kind of dramas happened within the office. My mother got cancer and I had to go home for a month, blah blah blah. You think that getting a job in an office would be the sort of that's it, that's the end of life? Not at all. So after that, my partner wanted to study PhD because he also got sick of this commercialism within the office. He's an architect. So we went to Philadelphia in States. And while he was studying his PhD, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a freelancer. I'm going to have my own business and started designing. No access to any facility. So I took a night study at a school and started making and playing with a ceramic for the first time ever. And that got me a design license job because I don't know whether you know, but there's a German company called Rosenthal, has a long history and it's a kind of a global company, of ceramic company. And I sent my design to them, and then they liked. We arranged a meeting. I also sent my bathtub design to Duravit. They also wanted to meet with me, so we kind of arranged a German tour, business tour. So we went there, had a meeting with the head of the directors of design. Each companies there, conveniently, they're all kind of in similar areas, Black Forest in Germany. So everything was going well, and we made an agreement of licensing the design. So I thought, okay, well, what if we actually do a little trade show? So, just before then, actually, before the licensing, I wanted to go to trade show. So we went to New York, ICFF. We got a little booth, all self-paid, and displayed our work. And then we started getting orders. But I did not have any capacity to produce anything in big order. And the artists that I started working with, we did not agree on our time schedules. So it was very, very hard. And it was a hard lesson to learn. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a business skill, and you have to partner with someone who's good at business. We as a designer typically do not have a business skill. So you want to leave that business side to a person who's good at it, and you are responsible for designing. So then the license came in. So I'm gonna share actually my website to show the project. So I have so then I established a company called Little Wonder. So the first license work was this opening vase. And that's the one that I made from taking a night course in a university in Philadelphia. This won Baden-Württemberg Award, International Design Award in Germany when it was produced. And it's been exhibited internationally and also collected as one of the 50 vases to celebrate 50th anniversary of Rosenthal studio line, alongside with Walter Gropius, Tapio Virkala. These are you go to museum or history book, you will see those names. So I was really proud of this, my first sort of license work. And then the bathtub that I was talking about with a Duravit was this one. We proposed the experience of lying in a hammock or floating in the sea. So what could be the tub to offer that experience? What was really interesting in the meeting with the design director was that this director was even crazier than us. And the director was like asking, what if we make the tub swing like a hammock? And anyway, we developed this tub and made a model, made a prototype. Yet the marketing people thought that it was a bit too difficult to develop at that stage. So we parked it behind. But this one on an award in a bathroom innovation in Australia. And so those kind of little things, started to kind of helped me to start building my own design studio. And my partner, who's an architect, also I work with him. So as you can see, my practice is very, in terms of scale, there's no limit. So for example, also material, because I'm really interested in the relationship between material, environmental elements, and a human experience. So if I just go, these are not by the way chronological. So first thing that you see is a mycelium stool. I exhibited through Craft Contemporary. This is something I worked with fog and water. This work is a textile and light, a mycelium work again. And the work here uses, at the time, fiber optics were kind of advanced new material. So I was like interested in grabbing this material, juxtaposing with handcrafted, mundane baking cups. So there's like about 30,000 bacon cups that we hand put together with this fiber optic work. And another ceramic work that I wanted to work with Rosenthal together. And there's a bow tie. I was interested in this, how origami works. So and then why men wears tie? That's so boring. And that goes centuries and centuries history. So I wanted to play with it, hence this little bow tie. Sofa design. We needed a sofa simply when we were living in Toronto. Okay, so maybe instead of buying a sofa, let's make one and then put it in our portfolio and then try to sell it. So we made a little sofa that, and we actually went to community center in Canada and then built ourselves. And so it has a zipper that, as you can see, that you can put a lot of stuff there. So it's a storage. And then the back detail, you can move it around so you can configure it anywhere. We managed to work with a Canadian furniture company and developed a prototype. And yet again, in the marketing stage, they decided not to pursue. So that's a life of design when you are a freelancer and when you're licensing design, you maybe design 100 of them and you end up actually producing 10, maybe less than 10. Because design isn't just about the experience, the comfort, the functionality, and aesthetic, and then beauty, but it has to sell. It has to make a margin for a company. So then that's where I kind of kept hitting the wall. And this is again, I don't know whether you know the company called Stelton. That's a Danish company. Arne Jacobsen also designed a lot of like the museum pieces in 1950s. So it's a company that it's a very high-end kitchenware or diningware company. And so we developed, first we were developing this one, the original prototype. And again, back and forth communication with the design director, and then we made a prototype. And the design director says, well, marketing team decided to go reuse Arne Jacobsen's work because they're famous for that work. And at that time, the 50s trend was coming back. So he said, okay, our marketing team said, no, not yet. We will use the existing design. And then also it's a bit too expensive to produce this. So we redesigned it, make it simpler, make it cheaper, and then reproposed. And you know what the design director said? He said, I don't want to compromise your design. I don't want to make a cheaper version. So either this one or none. So you really never know what kind of design person that you're working with. I found out that usually there are two different types of maybe companies that really it's about profit, profit, profit. Everything made cheap, everything compromise to really cut down the cost. But then there are design companies or manufacturing companies that really keep the integrity and wants to really push the high level. And it's trickier working with them because then you really have to know where do you compromise, and without letting them know that you are compromising. So that sort of skill set is needed if you want to become a freelancer. What else? So that's a short sort of story of my life. But then ever since I started teaching in Helsinki, I was still interested in teaching. So I taught in Philadelphia, UArts, and then I taught in Toronto a little bit. And then John, my partner, applied for a job at University of Melbourne, and that's why I'm following my husband everywhere. How great am I as a wife? And we thought it was just 2 years, but wow, 2 years turned into 8 years. And I was lucky enough to get a job at RMIT teaching product design. While I was teaching there, I still tried to work with my the licensing company, which this came about during that time. But I more and more realized that I am, rather than commercial side, I am more interested in let's say research, maybe design practice as a research form of research. So then I did my PhD at RMIT, and then I'm being very, very honest in here. I desperately wanted to leave Australia. Why? Because I felt like everything came here very late. I'm cut off from the rest of the world. I don't know what's going on in New York. I don't know what's going on in Paris. I don't know what's going on in Korea. Um, and a culture shock came. I did not have a culture shock in Finland. I did not have a culture shock in States, but I did have a culture shock in Australia. I guess everyone has a different take on it. So my partner and I decided to move to New York. And then I started really working with these ephemeral elements like water, fog, light, that sort of things. And so the fantastic thing is that when I was working with that, go kind of, maybe it's confusing for you. Oh no, where is it? This project here, we were invited by a Mornington Peninsula Gallery as one of the 6 architecture company in Melbourne, and we were asked to design a summer house for rich people. We thought that that's not sustainable. So rather than designing one house, we wanted to bring the experience of the ocean to the Melbourne, to the city. And then we decided to work with what's the beauty of the beach: sunlight, water. So that's when we started to getting into this working with environmental element. And the why I'm talking about this project is because I was able to design a sunshade, exhibited at the gallery, and then I took this to Milan design fair, and I met with a textile company, French textile company, and I sold my design to a textile company. And plus that, we were able to actually write academic articles. So this is kind of gave me the perfect sort of opportunity and the chance for me to pave my own sort of the practice. So I do this kind of initial research, and I also produce academic articles, but also able to commercialize and also engage gallery. So it hits a lot of different sort of route. So when I went to New York, I was still doing a PhD, and still I was interested in working with water. So this came about while I was in New York, trying to sort of visualize how the invisible air is moving without us noticing it. So using just a textile and the fog, we leave these fog on any kind of spaces, and then the air movement will kind of create this choreograph, the dance of fog. So this again, we exhibited in different parts of the world, Science Gallery in Detroit, and then online, offline sort of exhibitions. And we also published a lot of articles based on this. Somebody was proposing, well, why don't you make a humidifier like this? And I wasn't not sure. So I kind of maybe was moving a little bit more and more away from the commercial practice, and I was going into more and more of a kind of a research practice, design as a research practice. So that's So if you are interested in seeing more work of mine, then you can check the Little Wonder website, littlewonder.design. There are some videos to understand these work that deals with ephemeral quality, the temporal quality. But I will stop here. That was short version of my life. Oh, yeah, coming back to
Thanks.
Monash. Yes.
Yes. Oh, but very still kind of comprehensive. Short,
Yes.
obviously. There's obviously lots of stuff there that we'd love to know more about. We don't have time to go into all the details, but that gave us a really great sense, Gwynju, of your how you ended up here, kind of the pathway that I think what's interesting for us and the conversations we've been having in this unit is about the pathway of the designer not being predictable or always predictable. And I think this is probably the case with a lot of professions these days and just general kind of how employment has changed and how we move around. But I think it's particularly true for creative practices where you can go into periods where you feel a great uncertainty about what you're doing and where it's heading and where it's leading you. And I think what I got from yours is that I can see a sort of confidence that came. I'm sure there were periods where you did feel very unsure. I mean, obviously you would have, and uncertain and what, wondering what the hell you're doing and where it was going and whether you're going to be
Forever,
employed and all that
always,
stuff.
till now.
Always. But you're still here, right? You survived. And I think that's important to recognize that we do build confidence through working with that uncertainty and not trying to avoid it or something. Like we've been talking about how it's really necessary. I mean, even just for design practice, but certainly in the design in your sort of career and how you navigate that. I mean, there's an expression, building the ship as you're sailing it. Like you kind of need to have a sense of, I don't know, it's sort of there's a confidence, I suppose, in yourself. But in that you do, if you apply yourself and if you're sort of authentic about it, and I get a lot of sort of authenticity in your work and the way that you've been true to what you feel is important to you as a designer. And we've been talking about that too in the unit, the sort of way we connect with what's valuable to us and why we chose to follow this discipline, whatever it is that you're doing specifically, but really being true to that, I think you get looked after in a way. Like I just think you kind of it helps build a sort of a foundation. And when things are moving around and are uncertain up here, where you kind of like maybe moving countries or traveling around trying to figure out what you're doing, if you have that sort of foundation of being authentic, it's a word that gets overused a little bit these days, but it's for a reason. It's good to when you have that kind of sense of what's meaningful to you, I think it can guide you. And I definitely got that from your work. It was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing it. It's
Thank
really
you.
lovely to see your work. I kind of also, we've been talking about materials and particularly maybe in the context of some of our industrial design students and practitioners and some spatial as well, talking about how they're a kind of commonality maybe in how they think through their work is through the materials. And I can see that particularly in that last work with the fog, how the materials, there's a sort of relationship with the materials, which is becoming more visible or sort of like you can start to sort of see it in the work and what you're exploring, I suppose. So I was going to ask you a question about how you have seen it, I guess, in your teaching and your professional practice career. The students are thinking about the kind of graduate attributes. There's a changing sort of perception, I think, in what is expected from designers and how the industry and the professions are shifting and moving. Design's very kind of exposed to changes, and there's a lot of change going on at the moment, as we all know. What are people expecting from designers
Yeah.
days? Is that it? That maybe
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. I guess that's it.
Yeah, what's sort of expected from a graduate these days? How about that?
So if you want to be employed, you have to have your own uniqueness. And I think one way to have it is that either you are super great at drawing, you got amazing drawing skills,
Yeah.
which gives you the sort of entry point of employment. But when I talk to companies internationally, actually, not just Australia, but Korea as well, they say the first and foremost thing is your character and willingness to work with others.
Mm.
If you're an asshole, you're not going to be you're not going to be hired. And
Oh.
if you are like introverted and too shy and not able to articulate your work or not able to articulate your thoughts or how you actually your design explain the process, how you came about from ideation to this final work, they don't really see a long-term relationship with you. When
Mm.
they want to hire you or when they want to hire students, they're not hiring to just work with 6 months,
Mm.
right? They're trying to see someone to work with. They're hiring someone to work with for long time because it's an investment from them.
Mm.
So person to person relationship is the most important thing. And that's what I was told by the Samsung, actually, the president of the design told me that I'm looking for someone, but this person has to be a good person.
Mm. Mm.
And design skills, that's given. That's
Mm.
of course given.
Yeah.
But we don't have to even speak about it. But the person who can commit, person who's dedicated, person who can articulate, person who can collaborate, person who can listen, person who can empathize. Those are the type of people that they really look for
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
Another thing about Dion, your point about how design practice shift is that because the technology changes so fast that it doesn't matter whether you studied industrial design or spatial design or visual communication, you can be employed by other sort of disciplines and on unexpected places. So one of my students who studied mycelium in spatial design elective, she just packed up, I want to live in London.
Right.
She had nothing. She just packed it up, left to London. She got a job in biotech design company in 4 months.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow,
Who
that's
would have
amazing.
thought? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is where it's hard to convey this maybe to our students. You know, this work is out there if you kind of
Hmm.
go and look for it, and it's perhaps in unexpected places. And that's a great story. But to go back to your point about the way potential employers, look for more than the folio. The folio, like you say, is a given that you've got these sort of skills and you can make the shiny object or whatever it is. Um, your what you present also is your relationship with your craft, with your discipline, and how you are, like you think you use the word character. To me, like character is a sign of how you have this sort of developed this way of um, communicating what you do in a way that understands the sort of relational nature of design, and that it's about all sorts of relationships that are going on and how you can be responsible for those relationships. Um, and I think that can come through in your folio in a way where you perhaps present how you work on understanding that at a sort of like a meta level, I suppose, like it's sort of understanding what it means to be a designer, not just the design stuff, the stuff you've done, but the doing of design.
Mm.
Um, and it's nice to hear you say that because it kind of affirms what we're doing in this subject, which is keeping this website that documents studio work and that looks at that documentation through various frames. And those frames are the content of this TDN unit.
Mm.
So whether it's through a critical frame of some kind or a speculative or some sort of social frame or whatever it is, we can think about our work and our practice through these frames. And I'm encouraging the students to think about their own frames. And that frame, it might end up, say it's to do with sustainability.
Mm.
It might end up being this sort of practice that focuses on using mycelium or biophilia and these alternative amazing materials. It's mind blowing what's going on in that world at the moment with mycelium. And then that sort of guides your practice a little bit in that it again grounds it and helps you direct it and sort of carry it in the ways that you want it to carry, and it's coming from a place that is purposeful for you, rather than being preoccupied with that need to have the shiny folio and get the job without having a sense of, why, what's the purpose of the practice. Because given the amount of uncertainty, like we're saying, and now of course AI has kind of just made it even more fun for us to try and anticipate where these changes are going. There's a lot of like high winds blowing us around. So when that's the case, you need to have kind of strong anchor points to kind of keep you grounded.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraging that with students, and I can hear that in what you're saying too. So thanks for affirming that for me. And what I'm saying is also kind of echoed perhaps in some of the other, faculty and staff in the design department.
Right.
We're all kind of feeling it, but in different ways. I think you've sort of given a different perspective,
Yeah.
sort of making similar points.
Yeah, I guess maybe my last short comment might be that is on that note, that the students, their age, their situation now, it's unsettling. It's very natural to be unsettling, anxious, scared, and unsure, and have doubts, and don't have much confidence. That's very natural. I don't think you have to worry too much about it. It'll come. Oh, if you know what you are interested and you do your best, and keep pursuing things that you want to do, whether that's a material, whether that's um, um, the elements, and the interest will change gradually, and your life goal change and priority changes. I think that some aspect you maybe want to go with the flow. You might find a job immediately if you're lucky. You might not find a job. If you don't find a job, you really have to be careful, really self kind of self-development. How do you develop yourself? What am I really interested? Materials in my case. And now I love animals, and so I'm into these ecology things. But yeah, I guess don't don't get too depressed or anxious because you couldn't find a job immediately. You will get there.
Thank you.